So yesterday I asked you to consider a couple of questions before we left, right? Okay. So I want you to think about those real quick. I asked you what is the characteristic that you look for in a significant other, right? All right. So everybody think about that for a moment. I know this is a little bit personal, but I'd like for us to go around and we're going to share a little bit. We're going to start with males. Character, yeah. Look at his eyes. Me? Let's go first. Alright. So you could say 1, 2, or 3 characteristics you like. Okay? Go ahead.
I just want someone to have fun.
Somebody you can have fun with. Okay? Enjoy time with. Right? Alex?
I like something to laugh a lot.
Laugh. Alright. Terry?
Someone who's
Enjoyable
enjoyable to be around.
to be around. Maybe we should rephrase this, okay? I want one word characteristic. One word characteristic that you're looking for. Sound good? Alright. Go back to the time.
Round 2.
Fun.
You said fun. Alright? You're sticking with that. Alex? What is that?
Humor.
Humorous. Okay? Sherry?
You might have to go back to me now.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
No, I'm
Wyatt?
Christ-like.
Alright.
I mean, someone who loves Christ more than
Very good. So, passionate about one's faith. Very good.
supportive.
Supportive. Mr. Olson. Mr. Irvin?
a listener.
A listener.
Honest.
Honest.
Loving.
Loving.
I was going to say
Honest
honest.
as well. Okay. Interesting. We'll get back to this in just a second, but they're all lying. I'm not telling the truth. Yeah, they're not all being honest. So we'll go with the girls now. Ms. Rogers?
Understanding.
Understanding.
Honesty.
Honesty. Mm-hmm.
Trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
Reliable.
Reliable. All right, take note of that one, okay, because we may come back to that. We'll have to define that a little bit more depth. Ms. Keiser?
Loyal.
Loyal. Ms. Blattner? Listener.
Smart.
Mm-hmm.
Common sense.
Common sense.
Thank you. Waiting for that over there.
Okay. For the most part, they're kind of skirting around the really, sidestepping what they really feel in this particular case. So let's go back to the guys, and I said that they're completely lying. So girls, what is the characteristic that the guys primarily?
Physical.
Yeah, it's physical characteristics. Yeah, it's attraction, right? That's the number one characteristic that guys are looking for. All right, for the girls, they're kind of, again, sidestepping the real characteristic. Guys, you want to take a shot at what they're looking for? No, you're not a guy. Nobody knows. Nobody wants to say because they don't want to get slapped. It's money.
Oh.
It's money.
Oh, really?
So when Ms. Sorensen said reliable, reliable could be a couple different ways. It could be like loyalty, commitment, reliable, or it can be I can rely on you for financial support. Okay? So the question is why? Why is it that, researchers, especially in the field of psychology that we're going to look at today, have identified that these two characteristics are really important when it comes to mate selection and relationships. Why is it that girls look for money? And why is it that guys look for physical attraction? Any explanations there? Yeah, it's
I
Claire.
feel like girls want to know that they can be taken care of, and money is pretty much really up there in doing that.
Okay, that's exactly right. Okay, they want to make sure that they're taken care of. They want to make sure that not only them, but also their children can be taken care of. Okay, For guys, what's the primary goal for a guy?
Procreation.
Yes, procreation, reproduction, okay? And so how does physical attraction relate to this idea of procreation and reproduction, yeah?
Well, it's kind of like what Lexi said about like back of their brain is just bigger.
Okay, the visual portion, okay, I like that idea, yeah?
What about people that don't have kids?
What's that?
What about people that don't
Yeah,
have
so
kids?
that kind of throws in a wrench into the argument that we have here with this concept of mate selection. So, I was thinking about that prior to coming in today, because I was going to do a little bit of research, but I ran out of time. But it's a good question. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Ms. Lexi?
People want to like marry someone that has the traits that they want to pass down.
Okay, that's true. Let's think about it this way. Who is a more optimal partner to procreate with? Somebody that is a high level of attraction, somebody that has a low level of attraction. High level attraction means what? Equals what? No. Equals health is what it is. Alright? More healthy. Okay? And so that means a higher percentage likelihood of having healthy children. Okay? So that's one reason for that. Something else we should consider. The other question I asked you, why is it that, these are kind of related questions, why is it that females have a tendency to choose older males? Why is it that older males have a tendency to choose younger females? Ideas? Ms. Rogers?
Because males mature slower than females.
Okay, so that's the common answer that a lot of us have, but, that's not the answer that these guys are coming up with. Ms. Sorensen?
Older guys have more money.
Or older
Yep.
guys have more money. They have
Younger
more
girls.
time to make more money and have stability, okay? And then what's the other way around then? Why is it males to females the other way around, Ms. Keiser? Exactly. Level of attractiveness. You have more of a larger window for this idea of fulfilling that one goal of procreating, okay? And fulfilling that particular goal there, okay? So, yes, Ms. Lexi.
So do like other things factor into that too? Because like if a guy's more mature, then most likely he has like a stabler job.
Yeah, I guess you could consider that level of maturity equals more money. Is that what you're saying, implying? Could be. That could be a possibility there as well. Yeah. All right, one more scenario for us to consider before we move on. So in a case of infidelity, cheating, okay, a male would get upset in what particular case? Physical infidelity or emotional infidelity. So physical infidelity is actually the physical cheating. The emotional infidelity is that his partner has developed a strong emotional relationship with somebody else. Right? So which one, you said both, but which one? Now, the obvious answer is yes, we're both going to be upsetting. But which one is worse? Right? Which one's going to cause more of an issue? Emotional infidelity or physical infidelity? Again, we're starting with the male perspective. Ms. Keiser? Physical. Why is it the physical? You're right there. It's obvious, right? But there's an explanation. Yep.
At a basic level, the guy wants to pass on his genes.
Yep, exactly. Pass down genes. If somebody's going to be passing down genes, it better be my genes that are being passed down. Okay? Better not be somebody else's genes. Okay? The other side, for females, which one are they going to be more upset with? Emotional infidelity or physical infidelity? Emotional infidelity. All right? And sometimes this one is a little bit more challenging for students to, relate to and understand, because, everybody gets upset about physical infidelity. That's true. That's going to be an issue, and it's going to be challenging. But the emotional infidelity is the one that gets the best of most females, according to the research. And why would that be? Any ideas? If there's physical infidelity, he may come back, right, to the family. If it's emotional infidelity, he develops a strong relationship and friendship, intimacy in that aspect with somebody else, he may not come back. And so if he does not come back, what's gone? the money, right? The stability. So it's all interrelated that way, okay? So these concepts relate to one of the schools of thought we're going to look at today. It's evolutionary psychology, okay? Evolutionary psychology. We may go back and watch this at the very end. A little clip from Friends. You guys ever seen Friends before? Yep. It's a little bit humorous. It talks a little bit about Ross's perspective on evolution, Phoebe's perspective on evolution. That's a little bit beside the part, but a little bit of humor in class. Maybe we'll go back at the end and watch that. So evolutionary psychology, sometimes students when they hear the word evolution, start thinking about Charles Darwin, think about natural selection and all that stuff. It's a little bit different from that when we apply the concepts to psychology. I'd like you to make sure that you emphasize the idea of mate selection. Mate selection, because this is really what we've been talking about with our scenarios here this morning, is ideas of relationships and mate selection. Okay? So it's a very small area. That's the area of emphasis in evolutionary psychology. It seeks to answer how human behaviors required for survival have changed over the course of time. So when we talk about survival, we're talking about mate selection. Why do younger women choose older men? Why do older men choose younger women? And so this may be, Alex, you were asking the question about, what if they don't want to have children? I'm not sure how an evolutionary psychologist would answer that particular question. Same thing with like the LGBTQ type of lifestyle as well. I'm not sure how an evolutionary psychologist would answer that particular question. Right? But I imagine that they do have an explanation. I got to look more into that. Okay. So can human behaviors adapt over the course of time? That's what an evolutionary psychologist is going to try to answer. Okay. We already talked about that. One thing that the next one is going to be biological psychology. And when we get to evolutionary psychology, biological psychology, it's very difficult for students to differentiate the two of them. Okay? So evolutionary psychology is more long-term, like over the course of many generations. Okay? And so we're thinking about mate selection. We're thinking about the advantages of language. How does language contribute to your ability as a species to be able to procreate and reproduce? Okay? Biological psychology is more on the ideas of physical components that you have, physiological, nervous system, parts of the brain, okay, neurotransmitters, that type of thing. Okay, so biological psychology in the recent, past 20, 25 years has really just taken off because of the instruments that are available now to give us a better idea of the different parts of the brain and their functions associated with them. Sound good? So, we talk about cognitive psychology becoming the most prevalent and widely used approach in psychology. This one is really taken off as well. All right? Does anybody know what this is called? We're going to get to more of this a little bit later. A neuron. Right? You guys familiar with neurons? Talked about them in science class before? All right, good. I'm glad that you have. Because we're going to break that stuff down here in a week or so. Okay? So it fits underneath a larger category, subject area of neuroscience. Biological psychology would. And so what you do with neuroscience is you get the psychologists together with the biologists, with the biochemists, with the medical researchers, those in the medical field, and they work together in trying to create solutions to people with different types of disorders and abnormalities, right? Issues that are usually associated with your nervous system or your brain. Okay. So when I think of neuroscience, I think of House. You guys ever seen the TV show House?
Yes.
Right? And House has got like 3 other doctors that work with him. One focuses on like the bacterial side, right? One of them focuses on neuroscience, specifically like the part of the brain, okay? And that's the one that I like, the most, and it's really associated with this. Mr. Irvin?
So what's the difference between this and cognitive psychology?
So cognitive psychology is more about the mental processes, and more of like the, outward expression. It's not so much the physiological. So cognitive may actually separate itself more so from the physiological components, you know what I mean? This one's more physiological. Thinking about the anatomical parts of the brain and nervous system there, okay? So we really have three that students get confused, right? You got functionalism, right, with William James. And whose name's attached to that? Charles Darwin, right? And so that's where students get mixed up. They think Charles Darwin, it's got to be evolutionary psychology. They think Charles Darwin, stick with functionalism, because his ideas influence William James' ideas on how mental processes function inside of one's environment, okay? And then you get evolutionary psychology, and I want you to think of mate selection primarily there, okay? And then, I guess I didn't show you the name. The guy's name is David Buss. David Buss. This is evolutionary psychology. I apologize, I skipped over that. David Buss, I think, is B-U-S-S. B-U-S-S. I think he worked at like the University of Texas in the 1980s, 1990s, and this is where it started to popularize this particular approach to psychology. Biological psychology don't have a psychologist for them, okay? So when we get to our study on biology behavior, this is a lot of what we're going to be looking at, okay? The last one, sociocultural approach. I think in the Bell work yesterday it was identified as the sociological approach. And so this is where it's an aspect of psychology. It's a psych perspective, but it really takes into concepts of sociology. Social forces influencing one's behavior, cultural influences influencing one's behavior. So it's really stepping away from the internal explanations, and in a way it's incorporating some of the externalities around you that are influencing one's behavior. So it's got some similar components to behaviorism. It's not as specific as, say, classical conditioning and operant conditioning, but it does emphasize how one's environment is influencing your behavior. So a couple examples for you to consider. What is your approach to school and to homework? In our society, we hate homework, right? We despise homework. That's not something that we get excited about. Say in Southeast Asia, in China, your life is all contingent upon how well you do on test scores. The test that you have, you get the good test score, you get to go to the good school, you get to go to the good school, you get to go get the good job, you make a lot of money. Okay, it's all tied together, right? It's tied together more so than what it is here in the United States. Much stronger relationship there. So when it comes to homework assignments, they attack homework assignments. It's a way in which you can beat out the next person to get in the good school, right? It's not dreaded like we dread homework assignments here. Sound good? So that would be an influence, cultural influence over how we approach certain times, certain aspects of life. You can think about alcohol consumption as well, right? How we approach alcohol in our culture, behavior associated with that, versus how other cultures approach alcohol as well. The last one, and this really isn't a psych perspective, okay? This is just really a concept that is widely used in psychology. I want to make sure that you are familiar with it. It's eclecticism. So what eclecticism is you can pick and choose different components of these different psych perspectives and to incorporate them into your analysis of human behavior, right? You don't have to just have the blinders on and be only a psychoanalyst or only be a behaviorist. There are certain situations when you may incorporate and think about human behavior in aspects of operant conditioning with Skinner's ideas, right? But then there's going to be something else when you want to pick in Freud's aspect of unconsciousness, right? The id, ego, superego, right? Or you can make biological psychology, parts of the brain, what's going on. You've got some issues, right? You can't remember anything. Got something wrong with your hippocampus, okay? So you can pick and choose different approaches to psychology. That's called eclecticism. Sound good? Any thoughts before we finish up today? No? Alright, let me stop this.